There are 3 deputations, so I thought that I would start with Islay Mcleod, who's making a deputation in relation to item 13, Major Cycleway Routes Program, Delivery Program Design Guides. And I just asked the chair of the relevant committee, Islay, to give you a copy of the amended resolution, which may address some of your concerns. So I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm making this deputation because I'm very concerned about the process being proposed in a report this morning to Council to progress the development of the major cycleway routes, with particular regard to Rapanui Shag Rock. I will be speaking as a member of the Hagley Ferrymead Community Board, but not on behalf of the whole board, as the additional information presented in the report before you today was not known until the email from Peter Mitchell last Friday, and the Hagley Ferrymead Community Board doesn't meet till next Wednesday. Of relevance, I am a resident in the affected area. I live in Chelsea Street, and I'm a community representative on the Safer Linwood Park group. I'm a member of the Estuary Trust as the Charlesworth Reserve is impacted. I'm a member of the Linwood Village Master Plan Community Advisory Group, and I have a cobweb-covered bike in my shed, which indicates I also fit into the target market of interested but concerned. I'm also a trained site traffic management supervisor. That's the STMS sign on the back of roadworks staff. My qualification has lapsed, but I expect the principal driver for the qualification remains to cause the least inconvenience to the travelling public. In last Thursday's press, in explaining the doubling of the budget for cycleways, it was reported that the former council envisaged 13 cycleways would be largely on road, requiring just white lines and green paint on the roads. In fact, the concept of the now named Rapanui cycleway was anything but. Back then, it was proposed to run the cycleway up the existing pathway along the Linwood Drain from Charlesworth Reserve at the end of Linwood Avenue to cross Aldwins Road and then purchase land to run the pathway across to Worcester Street. And the Hagley Ferrymead Community Board back then opposed it because of the major development work required on the pathway owing to earthquake damage but also widening, and the cost of meeting SEPTED guidelines along the length of it, including Linwood Park. Then there was the land costs. So we recommended going round Humphreys Drive, up the Linwood Paddock side of Linwood Avenue, a barns dance across Dyers Road, run straight up the middle of Linwood Avenue through the trees, through the Linwood Avenue, Aldwins, Buckley's intersection and onto Avonside Drive, where it would eventually link up with the Avon-Otakaro cycleway, with an exit to a normal cycle lane at Worcester Street. The next time the Hagley Ferrymead Community Board sees the planned route is the current board, and the route's no longer up the Linwood Drain. But there's some very disturbing developments. And in advance of the 17th of November Community Board briefing, I authored the paper sent to each of you in response to Peter Mitchell's assertion that community boards have made no recommendations. My first concern was that the proposed route around the side of Charlesworth Reserve, through the Bookhaven subdivision via Te Rakau Drive and out onto Dyers Road, the heavy traffic ring road bypass for the port. Now, if you look at page 300 of your council papers, page 11 of attachment 7, you will see that very map. The map refers at the bottom to option 1 as being considered to meet the desired outcome, but the narration on page 14 has changed to route 2, straight through Charlesworth Reserve, which on the 24th of October was coded red as not able to achieve the desired outcome in any way. So how come option 2 is now the preferred one? And the risk to delivery column states that this option 2 route needs to mitigate SEPTED issues or provide alternative winter night route. So why not provide an effective route from the outset? Following the 17th of October briefing of the staff promotion of Route 2, I sent an email and Eric Banks, Senior Network Planner for Parks, responded His response included an opinion from Andrew Crossland, who's the park ranger and internationally respected ornithologist. However, from a wildlife management perspective and from a user conflict minimalisation perspective, to build a cycleway along the alignment of the fire break west of the bund track would separate bikes and people, put bikes well away from wildlife, and is the most direct route through the reserve. So anyway, next from the Charlesworth Reserve, this proposed route goes up the left-hand side of the Linwood Drain Canal along an existing walkway, but proposes to take out vegetation to mitigate septid issues. Those are the poplars and hawthorn hedges, providing shelter, shade and screening from Linwood Avenue, an amenity value for residents in the subdivision. Coming out of Linwood Park, it's proposed to have signalised crossing over the Aldwins Road to Marlborough Street. That's across a major suburban arterial route and less than a block away from the Linwood Avenue intersection. The route then wiggles round the scenic back streets of Phillipstown and Linwood to Worcester Street via Tancred Street, and that will require taking out street parking. And on the corner of Tancred Street and Worcester Street is the only on-street parking outside under the red veranda. It's claimed the Rapanui Shagrock MCR will enhance the Linwood Village Master Plan. Well, as a member of the Master Plan Advisory Committee, I can assure you that it won't. It'll take out on-street parking, and that will further hinder the development of this very sorry suburban centre. In conclusion, I have issues with at least 3 choke points from a traffic management point of view: cyclist safety in at least one area at Linwood Park, negative impact on residents' amenity and businesses along the route, and even further cost increases as the reality of managing those issues is accounted for. I suspect this whole process to date has been rushed through to make the long-term plan. How can the Rapanui Shagrock Cycleway have doubled in cost when the previous Community Board's recommendations will have saved the Council hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in development and land purchase cost? The proposal before you today, I believe, is to workshop the one predetermined MCR route, and that will be the Rapanui Shagrock Cycleway route you have before you. The flaws I've outlined to you aren't new to the project team. If the Council approves the delegated decision-making to the ITE Committee, this same route design will come back to the Hickley-Ferrymead Community Board and then out for public consultation. It's a route I believe to have serious flaws, and that would be an embarrassment to go to the public with, surely. I would like to see an independent audit on the viability of the Rapanui route and the creation of an integrated development plan for cycleways, including the Heathcote Expressway, Opawaho River route, Avon to Kara route, East Cycleways connections and the East Orbital Cycleway. I believe there are risks inherent in the Rapanui Cycleway plan you see today, and therefore in the proposal to delegate the decision-making, least of all to democracy, and I hope that I have demonstrated some of those to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Phil.
Thanks, Islay. You'll be aware from the amendments that we've indicated to you that there's more specific detail on how community boards would be involved, and I take it from these two that would allow, for example, this process would allow community boards to put forward another option, another suggestion like you have just outlined to us now. So I'm just wondering if you think, in fact, that might be workable, because I do understand that the council staff have worked through some of the options with you, including, like, for example, you mentioned what Eric Banks had his input into it as one staff member. But my main question really is, now that, in fact, it is clear that other options could be explored by a community board, will that actually assist your concerns?
I don't believe it will. And the reason why I don't believe it will is that the concerns that I have, and I can only speak for myself personally, but I can think others have too around the table, but the concerns that I have are very serious, and they have been presented on several occasions to staff and ignored. And I have no confidence in the clause that says here, noting the route selections as detailed below will be subject to receiving recommendations from the affected community board. My recommendations have already been presented and they've been ignored. And so
In your recommendations, so not the board's?
initially they were the whole of the community board in the last term, and at the moment I believe a letter was written to the Mayor and the Chief Executive at the end of last year. I haven't personally seen it expressing our concerns, but...
Thanks, Islay.
Paul.
Just to clarify, you've sent these recommendations, they actually went via our chairperson?
Initially, when I prepared my opinions, which I sent to you and everybody on the community board, I also asked our community board advisor to send it to staff in advance of the briefing on the 17th of October.
Point being is, I suppose, going via the chairperson, it basically does represent the board's views.
I think that I'd made the point that I've received a letter from the chair of the community board, which I'm happy to table at this meeting, basically saying that the community board discussed information in a memorandum on the cycleway. The board decided to write to advise of the additional information, the board's ongoing concerns regarding the route of the Rapanui to Shag Road cycleway through Charlesworth Wetlands Reserve. So while the board has not resolved in support of a specific route through the reserve area, members have expressed concern at the proposals and support for the community to be able to have input into these routes, acknowledging that community boards are not part of the decision making on the route selection. So this will involve both public engagement and also now further involvement of the community boards. What we're going to be considering today is an approval in principle rather than the specific detail of the route and the design. All right. Well, look, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming today.